Anyway, let's hear from yet another politician that would normally be hyper fucking reactionary, bloodthirsty, you know, just salivating from the mouth on potentially doing more war. Let's hear what he has to say about enforcing a no-fly zone.
The Senator Marco Rubio from Florida, the Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator Rubio, thanks for joining us this morning. You were on that Zoom yesterday with President Zelensky. Are you and your colleagues now more open to a no-fly zone?
You know, look, a no-fly zone has become a catchphrase. I'm not sure a lot of people fully understand what that means. That means,
dog, the reason why it's a fucking catchphrase is because of you and other pieces of shit like you.
22 months.
You deliberately misrepresented and lied to the American people for many years whenever you wanted to do a no-fly zone anywhere else. But now you want to do a no-fly zone to a fucking nation with a nuclear arsenal, and you can't do that anymore. So you're like, oh, who did this? We're all looking for the guy who did this. You're in the fucking hot dog suit. Okay, you crashed your hot dog car into the fucking storefront, and now you're going, oh, who did this? How did this happen? Why do Americans think that fucking a no-fly zone means like a weird protective barrier or a suggestion, like and not all-out war? Oh, you did this. You did this to justify this policy in other countries that you were able to do this to. Okay.
means flying AWACS 24 hours a day.
Ooh, someone should probably spank me on or spank whoever did this on their bare butt. We should go conduct an investigation, but like let them get away with it in the aftermath.
Means the willingness to shoot down and engage Russian airplanes in the sky. That means, frankly, you can't put those planes up there unless you're willing to knock out the anti-aircraft systems that the Russians have deployed, and not just in Ukraine, but in Russia.
Reports, of course, that would send gas prices soaring even more here in this country. Do you support it?
I do, and I don't think, I think that's something that you can construct a plan to phase that in pretty rapidly, and you could use reserves for the purposes of buffering that. But we have more than enough ability in this country to produce enough oil to make up for the percentage that we buy from Russia. And by the way, this notion that somehow banning Russian oil would raise prices on American consumers is an admission that this guy, that this killer, that this butcher, Vladimir Putin, has leverage over us. Why would we want that leverage to continue? Why would we have someone like him to have the power to raise gas prices on Americans, which is basically, if he cuts us off, what would happen in the reverse? So I think we have enough of it. We should produce more American oil and buy less Russian oil, or none, actually none at all.
Yeah, dude, that's... How are we going to do that? It's like fucking Nuke Andes being like, oh, nuclear energy is the way. Okay, it takes like, what, 10 years to fucking build a nuclear plant? How are we going to do that? How are we going to do that right now? Even if you're not, let's say for a moment that you genuinely are thinking about America's national security, okay? And you're not actually just being like a fucking piece of shit for your corporate benefactors, okay? How are you going to do that right now in the interim period? Oh, so unlike the nuclear boys, what he's saying is faster and more likely to occur. Even though, from what I understand, fracking is not even as efficient as obviously other methods, and therefore, I don't know if it's even true or not. I don't know. I don't know if you can truly stabilize prices by increasing fracking. That is, of course, before you recognize some of the negative consequences of fracking.
You're facing some criticism from fellow legislators for tweeting out a picture of President Zelensky during his Zoom with Congress yesterday. The ambassador asked members not to do that because it would endanger Zelensky. Why did you ignore that request?
First of all, she said that well into the call. Second, there's no security risk in that at all. Perhaps she was under the impression that the Zoom call was a secret. It had been broadly reported, like multiple outlets, maybe even ABC had tweeted it was at 9:30. There were over 300 people on this call. The details of the call were emailed to a bunch of people.
Not allowing for no-fly zones, but giving other countries just to prevent World War III. Same, Sam, no. It depends on what Russia considers to be an act of fucking war. I think, leading up to this moment, you can't really stop a country from receiving weapons, right? Like, unless you're literally the country's leader, okay? But even then, it's hard. You know what I mean? You can sneak those fucking little AR-15s in bread baskets, baby. You know what I mean? USAID style.
Indian Walton
So
is a
even
real
then, it's
one.
hard. Even if you're like trying to prevent a fucking military coup from occurring, a violent military coup from occurring in your country, it's still hard to stop America from giving you guns, giving your citizens guns. So you're fucking not gonna be able to do that to a foreign nation, regardless. But you can't put the F-16s in the bread baskets, okay? You can put javelin missiles inside of food, supposedly food supply. Oh my God, my brother is killing me. You guys probably can't hear it, but in the background, it's like, what? He literally opens all the fucking doors in the house. He opens all the doors in the house, and then starts
awesome
drilling
content, big
and
brother
you know,
Hassan.
using power tools. And it's like, why are all the doors open? At least close them so I don't have to fucking hear it. He's like, nah, brother, you have to hear it.
And it was a nondescript picture, unlike any of the other ones, just like the other ones you've seen on the air. So there's no security risk there.
You don't believe you put him at risk?
No.
I want to also bring
It's such a stupid fucking, oh God.
up something that one of your fellow Republican senators, Lindsey Graham, has repeated again yesterday. Earlier in the week, he called for Russians to assassinate Vladimir Putin. Was that responsible?
Well, look, people are watching what's happening in Ukraine and what this man is doing to these people, what this monster's doing to human beings, and they're very angry about it. And obviously, you know, at the end of the day, I do think Vladimir Putin's going to face some problems internally in Russia. How the Russians seek to take care of it is up to them. I'm not sure he was calling for U.S. action in that regard. I think what he was basically trying to say, at least my reading of it, is I wish someone would take this guy out and remove him from power one way or the other. I think the whole world wishes that. But that's not something we can impose. That's something that has to happen organically and has to happen internally. And maybe it will, because he's not just facing a military catastrophe in Ukraine where he really can't win. I mean, the two outcomes he has before him are a costly military victory followed by a costly long-term occupation or a quagmire. But he's also facing a second front at home where his economy is headed to third world status here pretty rapidly.
So far, he appears completely undeterred by that. Do you believe he's acting in a rational manner?
I think he's acting in a manner he believes is rational, because you have to understand this is a guy who views himself as a historic figure. He believes his legacy is going to be secured by being the person that restored great Russia. You can't be a greater Russia without Ukraine under your thumb. And that's what he's pursuing now. I also believe that he's a person that cannot survive, for example, being humiliated, and he can't survive in power if it looks like he backed down to NATO. So I think that creates a real opportunity here for danger. I don't think his perceptions are the same as our perceptions about the world, about the way things are going and so forth. This guy's also an authoritarian leader. He doesn't get a lot of bad news. They don't report a lot of bad news to him because it doesn't get you promoted. So I unfortunately think we're entering probably the most dangerous part of this conflict because as he begins to realize he can't make the
He's not wrong, but there are, of course, as always, as is the case of Marco Rubio, he's also not completely correct as well. Once again, ultimately, it does not matter. If Vladimir Putin wants to restore the Russian Empire, there are limitations as to what we in the Western world can do, right? But here's one thing we can do, okay? Even if his ultimate goal is to overtake Ukraine in its entirety, there is no reason not to try to do democracy and diplomacy leading up to this, okay? All you will lose in that circumstance is a little bit of fucking time. All you will lose in that situation is 1 day of negotiations or a week worth of negotiations, okay? I keep saying this all the time. Like, even if it is, you're missing the fact that no Ukrainian wants that, which means long-term occupation with the population fighting for freedom. I get that. I understand that. First of all, the unfortunate reality is it doesn't matter what the Ukrainian people want because the Ukrainian people also want a no-fly zone. Why is that not happening? Well, because the rest of the world is not going to risk nuclear holocaust. And that is technically a good reason, for the record. I'm sorry. Okay? Ukrainians want to join NATO. And yet they weren't able to. Why? Because, again, nuclear holocaust. Ukraine is Russia's red line alongside Georgia. And either country being added on to NATO would mean would have happened. What is happening right now would have happened if either country was slated to be added into NATO. Okay? Which is precisely the reason why, with the exception of the United States of America, other European leaders within NATO have always said, we don't want Ukraine to be a part of NATO. So ultimately, it doesn't matter what Ukrainians want, okay? It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Having said all of that, there is one person, I feel bad for any Ukrainian viewer listening to this, but it's the reality. It is the dark and harsh reality, okay? What I'm describing is not something that I consider to be good or bad, okay? I want to help Ukrainian people, okay? I get it. I understand. Fighting against an imperial superpower at your doorstep that you have historical associations with is devastating. Okay? It's not great. You have fucking families dying. That's not a good thing. Okay? Do you realize what Putin's terms are? Of course I do. And I'm even saying that maybe Putin doesn't even care about the terms. Right now, Putin is shelling the fuck out of Ukrainian cities. Okay? Mariupol being one of them. I have a friend whose grandmother is literally in Mariupol. She cannot contact her. His aunts and her grandmother living in Mariupol right now, and she cannot contact her at all. They have no idea what's going on there. Okay? That's devastating. That fucking sucks. That's terrifying. That's horrific. And Vladimir Putin is almost single-handedly responsible for this. Okay? In a weird way, unlike any other country, Vladimir Putin is almost single-handedly responsible for the death and destruction. Okay? That is falling upon the Ukrainian people. I want to establish that. I want to make that clear. On the other hand, however, that shelling is going to continue regardless, right? That shelling is going to continue until they overtake the city. There is one thing. There are two things that you could do. Just let it keep happening and give more guns and not anything else, okay? And it's at a certain point, it's not going to, more guns are not going to help, okay? Or come to the table with the United States of America willing to make concessions to Russia. Concessions that Ukrainians might not enjoy, concessions that Ukrainians might not
15
want.
months, let's go.
But concessions that need to be made in order for a ceasefire or negotiations to happen. Now, even if Putin makes these demands and some of them are met, like the recognition of LPR and DPR as autonomous regions that are still within Ukrainian borders, because that was the Minsk agreement, and that is, from what I understand, still the attitude and the opinion that he has towards moving towards a ceasefire. Recognizing the recognition of Crimea as Russian territory, okay? The denazification of Ukraine and the demilitarization of Ukraine. Now, the last two are bullshit. White savior Andy take. First of all, the Ukrainian people are whiter than I am, okay, in the eyes of European leadership. So I don't know how the fuck I'm white, but like, pretty funny take from you, okay? What I'm trying to describe is this. If Vladimir Putin's goals are to reinstitute the Russian Empire, and he's not going to stop with Crimea, okay, and that he actually wants to take the entirety of Ukraine, then nothing changed before that diplomatic conversation. Yesterday and tomorrow will be the same. There is no reason not to try. That's what I mean. People, on the other hand, keep fucking saying, oh no, we'll just keep sending thoughts and prayers to Ukraine. Fuck diplomacy. You can't do that. You can't negotiate with terrorists. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't negotiate with terrorists. Like, okay, well then yesterday and tomorrow will remain the same regardless. So make concessions and start fighting from a worse position. There is no worse position to fight. What the fuck do you mean? In the aftermath of those concessions, what? What will change if those concessions are made? Additional time for Russian troops to resupply and regroup, right? That's what they said about the ceasefires as well. Oh, this is an opportunity for Russia to regroup and resupply. Okay, same for Ukraine. It's an opportunity for Ukraine to regroup and resupply as well. The Ukrainian forces, I mean.